even though right now we are focusing on Al Fasher because of the severity of the atrocities that are taking place, which I think it's also very important to note, the international civil society community and Sudanese themselves have been warning about the atrocity risk for over 2 years for the population of Al Fasher, but it's Al Fasher and the Kordofan region. Just a couple of days ago, on the 26th, the Emergency Lawyers Documentation Group reported on a massacre committed by the RSF of hundreds of civilians in a town known as Bara in North Kordofan. But we also know that similar siege tactics that were employed for over 16 months in Al Fasher are also being used in South Kordofan, in the cities of Kadugli and Dillinj. So even though we are talking right now about Al Fasher and the need for safe routes for civilians and also for humanitarian aid to flow into the population that have not been able to flee the city, those same measures are also needed in the Kordofan region. And if the international community does not immediately and urgently increase humanitarian assistance to these areas, many more people will die due to a lack of access to healthcare, food, and water.
If they wanna end up in Tawila. And so, but apart from that, we are able to work in a place like Tawila. We are not able to go to Al Fasher right now because of the situation that is still developing in Al Fasher. And so, with all our efforts, we are able to be present, we are able to deliver, we're able to support all the people in Tawila, and we are very, very disturbed and desperately waiting for, it sounds weird to say it, but we want these people to have a safe route and displace themselves to a place where we can assist them and where they can be safe themselves.
And violence has been one of the systematic weapons of war here that we've been reporting on since 2023. Let me read an excerpt for you from the New Yorker's Escape from Khartoum. This is a harrowing account of RSF fighters raping a man and then burning him alive. It is quite gruesome and challenging to listen for our viewers, but it's important for them to understand what is happening on the ground. Mudathir heard a commotion outside his house. RSF fighters in khaki uniforms were stealing a man's money. They raped him, then they raped him, Mudathir said. They passed him from one to another. Once the fighters left, Mudathir ran out to help the man, but the soldiers returned carrying a can of gasoline. The fighters poured fuel on the man. Mudathir tried to stop them, but they were armed. The man was weeping as the fighters set him on fire. A soldier warned Mudathir, "Your term is coming." Why has sexual violence and how has sexual violence been allowed to be used so indiscriminately against men, women, and children in this gruesome war?
Thank you, Biana, for amplifying that testimony and really shedding light on what is happening, as you said, to not only women and girls in Sudan, first and foremost, but also to men and boys. This is a tactic that is being used indiscriminately by both sides, although there is certainly more documentation of the RSF's use of sexual violence as a weapon of war. But this is a weapon being used because this is fundamentally a war against the civilians of Sudan. Both the RSF and SAF are trying to dismantle the progress that was made during the December revolution in Sudan towards peace, justice, and freedom. And the best way that they can undermine this progress is through reducing, annihilating, or attempting to annihilate the dignity of Sudanese civilians. And what has been really apparent in this conflict is that it is a pattern of violations that are occurring. They've been well documented, first and foremost, by Sudanese civil society, Sudanese documenters who remain on the ground and continue to do the work of sharing these stories with the international community at incredibly significant cost to themselves. But I've also sat in on interviews with survivors of sexual violence in Sudan. I remember one particularly poignant story of a woman who had been taken by the RSF. The RSF entered her family home, and when her father attempted to enter the room to protect his daughter, the father was killed. And this is just one story, but the current estimate is that only 3% of the actual rapes that are happening in Sudan are being documented. So we know this is happening. Part of our question here is not only where are the displaced, because they're not arriving at the main humanitarian haven in the region at the moment, which is Tawila, but also I've been observing and analyzing the footage, the self-recorded footage by the RSF of their violations over the past 48 hours. And I have seen very few women or children in this footage. So it's also the question of where are the women and children, in addition to where are the young men?
And when you say only 3% have been documented, and you couple that with what UNICEF has documented already, over 220 child rapes since early 2024, that includes infants. Just try to wrap your head around that when we couple that with the statistic that you just told us, and that is only 3% of these types of atrocities